Great. So Andrew, do you mind if we get going? I think we could start. All right, good afternoon. We have Colin joining. I'll give it a minute. Not a minute, but Colin, can you hear me okay? Dwayne, that's a much better video.
Yes, just fine. But I'm not going to use video driving.
Oh, I'd ask you to speak delicately too, so don't drive safe. So good afternoon. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Daniel Johnson, Chair of the West Hartford Pedestrian Bicycle Commission. I'd like to get the meeting going at 7 o'clock. We do have a very important agenda items today, so want to move through those things. Let me take attendance first. So Daniel Johnson, I'm here, present. Colin Gillespie.
Present.
Denise Gutierrez. Daniel Firestone.
Here.
Thank you, Dan. Paul Hogan.
Here.
Thanks for joining, Paul. Jill Marowski. You can nod. I don't know if we can take a nod. Hand raised. Thank you, Jill. Ryan Nobrega. And Sandy Fry.
Here.
Thank you, Sandy. So we have a quorum. Really glad to see that. Next, take a look at the previous meeting minutes. Can everyone see my screen okay? Unless you're driving. Any edits to the minutes as suggested by the commission? No edits. So a motion to approve the minutes unless otherwise stated. Anyone say no to approve the minutes as they stand? Sandy, you got a smile and a thumbs up. Great. So minutes approved, 7:03 p.m. I think it's a new record for a minute approval. So I'll mark that in the Guinness book for minute records. So next on the agenda, we have a couple old business items before we get to the 7:15 time slot for VHP in the town. Dwayne, I just want to check with you, was the consultant able to join today?
Yes, Joe Balskis from VHB is on. I would just ask to make sure that I can see his video, but just to make sure his microphone's working.
All right, we'll do a sound check in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you. So first up to bat for new business, the bike survey, pedestrian and bicycle survey closed March 31st. Want to quickly go over what we've gotten for feedback on a very, very light level. Ken and myself and Todd Dumais and Dwayne Martin, we're going to look to get together and kind of review the data and just see what it points to so far as how residents and visitors to West Hartford feel about themselves as a pedestrian or as a bicyclist going through town. But a quick look at the survey. I love surveys, and I love surveys with colors. It tells me so much more than just a standard Excel file. But we can see, some great trends. So overall, we had 1,019 responses. Question 1, over 1,000 people answered question 1. And within the survey, we can see how many people skipped some sections, which also tells us, are these questions right? Does this question fit everybody, or does this question only fit either a bicyclist or a pedestrian? So on average, how often you bicycle through West Hartford? Daily is very low at 6.79. Once a week at 20%, a few times a month, and then a few times a year up to 25%, and then not at all. We had 25% of respondents said they do not bicycle in West Hartford. What is or would be your primary purpose for biking? So the primary purpose leader was recreation enjoyment, followed closely by exercise, and then run errands, bike to work, and bike to school. This one I found really interesting because I think it points to a couple things that we assume make cyclists more comfortable, but may not in fact do that. So we can see, please select up to 3 choices that would cause you to bike more. Clear leader is paved bike paths, followed closely by marked bike lanes and more attentive, respectful motorists, slower traffic, and then signed bike routes, other. We do have comment sections here. I'm not going to open that right now, but we're going to look at that as a commission at a later date. But I found pretty interesting that arrows on the pavement showing bicycle sharrows ranked pretty low on what would cause people to bike more. So don't have to dive too much into it right now, but I just thought that was an interesting response. So are the streets in West Hartford safe to bicycle? Extremely safe, unsafe was the majority leader for that response, and extremely unsafe. So we have about 50–60% are in that unsafe, extremely unsafe category. And then we get into a little bit more about walking and biking to school. Some perceptions from residents and visitors. Again, the survey was open to the public, so it wasn't a resident-specific survey. People that come to town, visit town, restaurants, businesses, and recreation purposes too. So do you feel West Hartford does enough to improve the conditions for the town? Right now, the survey stands at 67.13. Again, the survey is closed. But just some important feedback. I think everything here is material. It tells a lot about how people are feeling. I think this is a great marker for what we can do as a commission, also what we can do as a town for the people that have taken this survey. This goes into assigned bike routes. So for those of you new to the commission, a few years ago under Scott Franklin and then Sandy Fry as chairs, we have assigned bike routes through town, which is a big factor in the town's rating for gold. Was it platinum or silver? So gold, silver, and then I think the next designation now is that bronze, Sandy? Okay. Long day. I didn't have my coffee till probably too early in the afternoon at this point. So we do have signed bike routes, and these are areas that we've designated lower traffic, better for people to utilize if they're looking for a recreational route. Between 2 and 4 miles is about the route. So blue route, orange route, green route. But then we have 45% of respondents said they have not ridden the routes, and then 27% said they didn't know the bike routes exist. So something we can work on as a commission, and really good to get this feedback because we put things out there and we don't know how people are using them, if they're using them. So I love the idea. I love the idea that we have something we acted upon, and then we get that feedback from residents. So during the pandemic, has the amount you bicycled increased, decreased, or remained the same? 39% increased, 50% remained the same, 11% decreased. And then we get into overall rate your perception of safety in West Hartford. These get a little bit more detailed, right? So extremely unsafe all the way to extremely safe. And again, leaning more towards the unsafe aspect, but we want to look at this closer. And then how comfortable are you walking the streets? How comfortable are you walking on the streets near your home? This was a scaled rating. I don't remember which side was which, but I think comfort is on the right side. Maybe 100 would be the comfort, very comfortable. But we'll have to double check on that, Ken. And what are your top 3 concerns with walking in West Hartford? And top 2, motorists not attentive of pedestrians, vehicles drive too fast, and then the third so far in ranking is safely crossing the street, followed by lack of sidewalks, lack of lighting, and other, and we do have responses in there. So town staff, look forward to working through these responses with you. I think it's going to be really interesting to hear them. We do hear resident voices through emails and calls, but this is something a little bit different, a new approach, but great feedback. So what are your reasons for walking? Everyone had to select an option here, but you can see it carries over. Then we do have additional comment section, which Ken will look into and provide that to town. And then we get into a bit more details from people as they move through the application. I want to pause on that, open up any questions. Right now, we just ended the survey on the 31st. We look forward to getting this feedback to the town, working with the town to go through some of the data points, but I want to open it up for you. Then commission, to see if there's anything you want to add that I missed, or you want to jump back to something to look at quickly. I will take silence as extremely excited or no questions. I'm leaning on the excitement side. All right. So next on the agenda. Yeah.
Paul Rogan here, everyone. I guess my question on this would be towards Dwayne and the town, and how exactly results like this would be maybe used or interpreted to, kind of anchor, I guess, constituents' views on bicycling, and how, the town would respond to that. Dwayne, if you have any input on a process there that you would have to incorporate this?
Sure. It's Dwayne Martin, town engineer. Any information obviously is beneficial. So we'll take whatever we can get and use it to the best of our ability to address issues around town, whether it's bicycling or any other problem that we contend with. So we agreed to have a follow-up meeting. I believe the request was for myself and Todd DeMay, the town planner, to meet. Todd is off this week, so we are asking to put off the meeting just a little bit. But like I said, we would take the information and evaluate it and see what we can do to make it.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Yeah, thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, Paul. Any other questions on that? Again, I want to thank the commission, Ken, Colin, and Jill Morawski for putting the survey together and working with Dwayne and Todd, Mayor Cantor and Ben Winograd to get the survey out. I just think it's such an important thing to have and a great marker for us to look at. The next on the agenda is updates on roadway and trail projects. I emailed the commission what Dwayne and I discussed last Tuesday. There's a few projects in play. One is the sidewalk extension. What direction am I going? West on Fern Street near Mountain Road. They will be extending that sidewalk. There's a sidewalk gap at the moment, but that will go to Mountain Road. That has been started. Dwayne, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the Farmington Avenue, LaSalle Road changes as spring approaches and outdoor dining resumes, if you're able to do that.
Sure. Again, Dwayne Martin, West Hartford town engineer. So the town is interested in redeploying the expanded outdoor dining. It'll be slightly different than what was set up last year as far as the size. And what we're trying to do more so this year than last year is spread the benefit amongst restaurant owners and business owners. The focus was a little bit tilted towards restaurant owners last year because of the pandemic, but overall it was viewed very, very favorable. Excuse me. So we want to redeploy that. So what that means is there will be concrete barriers and plastic water-filled barriers returned to LaSalle Road, Farmington Avenue, a small section on South Main Street, and a couple small areas in Blueback Square, just to expand the dining area out into the roadway or the parking area, depending on where the location is. It'll look very similar to last year. Couple minor changes with regards to traffic flow. LaSalle Road will still be the one way that it is now. We'll still have the back-in angled parking as it is set up now on LaSalle between Farmington Ave and Arapahoe. The bike lanes will still be there on that section of LaSalle Road as well. Farmington Avenue, just because traffic has picked up since we had the barriers out last year, we're going to have 3 travel lanes on Farmington Ave from LaSalle Road to Main Street. So there'll be 2 in a westbound direction, 1 in an eastbound direction. So the expanded outdoor dining won't be quite as far into the street in order to accommodate that lane in the additional traffic. We're looking to get those barriers redeployed around May 5th. We're trying to manage a couple construction projects in and around Farmington Ave at LaSalle Road and get those essentially out of the way to redeploy the barriers. And the other thing that we have looked at, which I don't know if it's been finalized or not, but we're at least exploring the opportunity of painting the concrete barriers to make them look a little bit nicer than what we had last year.
Great, thanks, Dwayne. You have a color palette yet for the barriers? We haven't decided.
No. I think the idea is to have an organized event where we can offer for families to go out and paint. But I have not been a forerunner on setting that up, so I'm getting the information secondhand.
That's an exciting twist. I think that'd be really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Any questions from the commission on the roadway planning projects? No, okay. So next item, we do have the town staff and consultants with VHP. Looks like is it Jay or James Bauskas on the line? Joe. I apologize, Joe.
All right.
I think at this point you're probably a WebEx professional and could lead a class on WebEx. So I wasn't too worried about your audio. It does work. And I want to thank the town staff and attendance, as well as the commission members and people in the line, whether you're joining by audio or on YouTube or public access TV. So looking forward to Joe, who is with VHP. We also have Dwayne Martin, town engineer, Matt Hart, town manager, Ben Winograd, town council, and Sherry Cantor on the line. So I want to thank you all for joining us this evening to look at this early presentation with Joe Bauskas and VHP for West Hartford. I want to just take a moment to to recognize how much has went to this meeting and the approach of this meeting, and how many years of work the commission and town, we've made a lot of great accomplishments together over the past several years and greater. And this discussion, while very involved and a lot of people are rightfully committed to it, it is a step forward, and we'd like to continue that momentum. And what's not in the information that we have is how people feel in town, how they feel on North Main Street. We have data to look at, we have timings to look at, we have volumes to look at, but we can't speak to how people feel when they go down North Main Street or any road through town. And I think all of these things are layered into as we make improvements, as we make West Hartford more desirable, a destination not just as a resident, but as a visitor, as someone who enjoys the outdoors. So I want to thank you all for being here. And with that, Dwayne and Joe, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Daniel. Before we get to Joe, I just didn't know if the mayor, town councilor Winograd, or Matt Hart want to say anything before I continue. Just give them the opportunity.
Sure. I mean, I'm happy to. I'm happy to start. To me, this is a really, really exciting time and something that we've been waiting for a very, very, very long. It's been not waiting for. We've been working towards. You know what? I will say, I do love connecting with people, and I love what I do. But one of the really hard parts of government is sometimes the change takes time, and I do think this is one of the most transformational projects that we've worked on. And this was it really came from the street. It came from neighbors. It came from people that live on the street. And to have elected officials understand how really this street it was never designed to be a 4-lane highway, residential highway of cars going 50 miles an hour. And this is one of my running routes. I run, I bike, and I do run fast on that street to get off of it. And that's not the way it should be. And it connects two really vibrant centers in our community, commercial centers, and the quality of life of being able to walk, run, bike, those connections, and then from the neighborhoods around it is big. But also the having safe travel in vehicles is probably, one of our number one priorities and one of our number one complaints. I do remember when I have 4 sons, and when my second son was a senior in high school. He was part of and this really has stayed with me. He's now a musician in Chicago, and he's 30 years old. And he got a speeding ticket on North Main Street. He was part of a scavenger hunt and was on the SpongeBob team. And he did get pulled over, and he had SpongeBob pajamas on. And that was kind of a goofy thing. But the bottom line is he was going, I think, 50 miles an hour at the time. And he said, "Mom, I was going the speed of traffic." And I will never forget that, and ever since then, I've always looked down and yep, the speed of traffic is going 50 miles per hour. And then teaching your kids to drive on that street was also harrowing. So anyway, you all know this, and this is what you've been working so hard for. But the point is that this has taken time. There's construction projects and other things that have sort of woven into the project, but ultimately I think we're at a place where I'm really excited to reach the next chapter. And I want to thank all of you and town staff for really working hard to keep this thing going. And I am looking forward to the next chapter. So I'm sure Ben would like to say something. I'm not sure Matt does, but thank you all.
Thank you, Sherry.
Sure. Just real quick, and thanks to the whole committee. I just want to say one thing that most impressed me, and again, I think echo everything Sherry said about the transformational aspect of this. But talk about grassroots. I mean, one of the best I'm an organizer, and one of the things that groups did of having the walking tours and inviting people to walk that corridor was brilliant. Forcing people to come out there and analyze as we walk to see how bad it was for those who don't live right on Main Street. Obviously, driven by, we all know how bad it is. But having that idea was just really good, community organizing. And I think the progress we're making is, all credit to those who have worked so hard for this. So, it's like I said, a lot of cooks. but I think we're getting there, and it's not the we say about a lot of projects, it's not the end, it's the beginning. This isn't the only thing we need to do, but we certainly need to do it, and looking forward to the report, and I can't wait till we actually start riding on North Main.
Matt, thank you, Ben Winograd. Matt, I see your hands raised.
Yep, I'll just
I'm not the teacher here, so you're welcome to speak.
Mayor Cantor has me well trained. Matt Hart, Town Manager, good to be with you all this evening. The mayor and Councilor Winograd said it well. Just very excited to be at this phase. Looking forward to the trial and hopefully a permanent installation. I want to thank you for the collaborative effort. Looking forward to tonight's presentation and moving forward. So back to you, I think, Dwayne.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Dwayne Martin, Town Engineer. I don't want to delay this much longer. I just want to get a couple statements out. So Joe Balskis from VHB is the town's project manager consultant for this road diet study phase 2. He's going to give us a PowerPoint presentation and answer any questions that may come from that, or just generally speaking about the project. So VHB was hired by the town not to design the road diet. They were hired by the town to evaluate North Main Street, Mountain Road, and Trapper Drive to decide whether or not a road diet would be a good fit. Would it work? Would it not work? And there were measures of success and failure built into the scope. And they have done a great job so far with evaluating a lot of information, coming up with concept plans. They've created a survey that they're about to launch. There's a public information meeting that's planned coming up. And so we wanted to get out in front of the road diet trial. And so the first step was to do a lot of analysis, come up with some concept plans and vet those, do some outreach. And the North Main Street Bridge project is underway, as many of you know. The idea is to get the trial started as soon as the bridge is done, which we're targeting July. And to do this trial for approximately 6 months. At the tail end of that, VHB will provide a report and a recommendation as to what to do. When we hired VHB, again, it was to be objective. And one of the guiding principles behind the phase 2 study is if it is decided that a road diet is not a good fit for North Main Street, there's got to be a solution here. So something else needs to come out of the study if it's not a road diet. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Joe to go through the PowerPoint presentation.
Thanks, Dwayne. Let me share my screen here. So I have a PowerPoint presentation. I also have a PDF of the actual concept plan that I'm going to walk through. But let me start with this. This is obviously the first slide of the presentation. Let's see if it works. It should be working now. Sharing the wrong screen now. Didn't I do this last time? Didn't I? Hold on a second. Let me share. Sorry, 1 second. Screen 2, I guess it's screen 3 did. Okay. I have 3 screens here, so I'm trying to get my screens correct. How's that? Now you can see it, right? Okay.
We can see it.
All right, thank you. So just as Dwayne, it's a little introduction about myself. As Dwayne said, Joe Balskis, I'm the VHB. I'm Director of Transportation Systems at VHB. I'm a Hartford area native. I grew up in East Hartford. I have relatives in Hartford and still in West Hartford, actually. My uncle still lives in West Hartford, so I know the area pretty well. I'm a transportation engineer. I am an engineer, but I'm also a triathlete. So I ride bikes year round. So I'm very familiar with the bike perspective and the pedestrian perspective. Secretary of the Connecticut Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Board in the state of Connecticut. I've been on that board for I think 8 years now. And I'm a professional engineer, like Dwayne is. I'm also a professional graphic transportation operation engineer. So I've got some certification experience for doing road diet projects, and I've been very much involved in road diet projects over the years. I did the first one I was in Connecticut. I did was in North Main Street in Bristol. So got a lot of experience with transportation and traffic. So let me just run through what I've got for the presentation. This is obviously a slide of the roadway itself, and So quick agenda, want to run through the scope of work that I've got that Dwayne was referring to, some of the traffic analysis that we've conducted from phase 1 to phase 2, some of the outreach that we've conducted as well. We have some three or at least 3 towns we reached out to, got information from. Then I'll run through the recommendations and the plans that Dwayne was mentioning, and then we'll talk about the next steps, which Dwayne kind of talked about. So the study area that we're dealing with here is phase 1, as you may recall, basically focused on North Main Street. That's highlighted here. And so for phase 2, what we've done, we expanded that study area. We expanded the study area to include about over 20 intersections. Obviously, North Main Street, we're looking at that, which we've done. We've also looked at Mountain Road, and we also looked at Troutbrook Drive as part of our existing conditions of pre-pandemic volumes, as well as our road diet trial analyses. We also looked at the intersections at the 84, the Park Road intersection. So we have like 20 plus intersections that we have included in this traffic model that we built for the project. Our scope of work for phase 2 included a lot of data collection, as you can imagine. And we obviously started last year, so we were in the middle of the pandemic. But we found a lot of data from DOT, from the town, other projects that we assembled over the last 5 years, 6 years of data. And we also conducted some traffic counts. We actually did some traffic counts during the pandemic, during when school was in session, and just to help us with making some adjustments for distribution of some intersections. We also did a crash review. We looked at crashes at all of the intersections throughout the entire study area. And with that information, we then conducted an extensive capacity analysis. We looked at the phase 1 capacity analysis that was done on North Main Street. We compared that to our own analysis, our software we're using, the Synchro software. We looked at how to divert traffic. We looked at ways to assume what kind of diversion of traffic you're going to have. Because with a road diet, you are going to have diversion of traffic. Traffic is going to divert. The question is, how much is it going to divert? And so we did a number of analyses, scenarios of how the traffic would divert from North Main Street, where would it go to Mountain Road, how would it go to Troutbrook Drive. And we built that traffic model and determined that the road diet trial, in terms of our analysis, it can be managed. We can manage that with signal timing and phasing adjustments on North Main Street. I'll talk about that. Some equipment changes, some revisions to the Troutbrook Drive traffic signal timings, Albany Avenue as well. But we found that it looks like at this point, based on the pre-pandemic volumes that we have in our projections, that the road diet trial can be implemented. And then the most important part of that is obviously monitoring that, as we've been talking about. We also did some outreach. And I know phase 1 did their outreach done as well. A lot of information from the Federal Highway Administration's road diet website. We actually went and talked to 3 communities that we've been involved with and had very similar road diet projects, very similar corridors. There's a lot of road diets out there. It's hard to find road diet corridors like North Main Street, West Hartford. There really is. There's not a lot. A lot of them are in more commercialized areas. We are between 2 commercial areas, 2 commercial centers, Bispers Corner in our West Hartford Center and Farmington Avenue. But we found a few of them that we've actually talked to the engineers and the planners about their own projects. And one I'll just highlight here real quick was in Charlotte, East Boulevard Road Diet, and they've done several road diets since this one was done. A lot of good conversation with the planning staff, the engineering staff, and importantly the fire emergency services staff. And what we found from what we've done as well as what these other communities have done in terms of the road diets implementation, and I'll tell you, they were amazed that we were doing the trial. They were amazed at how lucky we are to be doing the trial, because a lot of these communities just put it out there, do it, and some pull back. There's one in California. They put a road diet out, they ripped it up within 3 months, pulled it back, put it back to lanes. So they were excited for us that we're actually doing a trial, and obviously we're monitoring it. But that was one thing we learned from that, is that the benefits that we have of doing a trial. But one of the primary things I mentioned was the fire department, making sure the fire departments, your emergency services, are part of the process. And that was one lesson that they learned in Charlotte. They didn't do that for the first one, and they had some problems with that. And they have since changed their twiddle, as I'm calling it, 2-way left turn lane, which we'll talk about for this project. They changed the requirements as a result of the fire departments being involved with the projects. Obviously, public engagement is key, advance of implementation, and as I mentioned, also the trial implementation is ideal, and we're unique in that process. So the town staff has some good foresight here that actually considers as a trial and do the trial and monitor it through the process. So the recommendations we have in terms of the road diet trial, obviously North Main Street, there's similar cross section that was recommended in phase one, with the going from 4 lanes, 4 10-foot lanes, going to 3 lanes, where we have 2 operational lanes. We have a 2-way left turn lane, as I mentioned, and we're going to run it from proposing run from Loomis to Haynes intersections. As part of that, and I'll show you some more detail with the actual concept plan. At Fern Street and Asylum Avenue intersections, we're going to revise the intersection operation for exclusive left turn lanes in both directions. And we're going to also add traffic signal heads to the northbound direction and change the phases so the left turns can go together. Tropic Drive, and optimize the traffic signal system timing and the phase and the cycle lengths to maximize the ability to accommodate the diverted traffic that's going to be going to Tropic Drive. As I said before, monitoring this with extensive data collection in terms of traffic counts, look at the queue and the speed observations, just being out there as well. Lots of observations that we're going to monitor and document in a transparent process for the town and the project. So real quick, we all know, as we said, phase one, and everyone's been out there. We know that obviously this section is it's not the best photo to use. North Main Street. This is south of Fern Street. We know it's 40 feet. And I'll tell you that we use this mapping that the MDC map of the town. And so we didn't do a detailed survey. We didn't do a formal survey. However, we have gone out there and measured over a dozen locations, or at least that. We measured the roadway widths to affirm what we thought we saw on the mapping. And so basically we have 40 feet south of Fern Street, and north of Fern Street we have 42 feet. It's inches here and there, but all the measurements that we've done, and again, like I said, there's over a dozen locations that we measured across the roadway that we've affirmed that it is 40 feet south of Fern Street and 42 feet north of Fern Street. So let me talk about the 2-way left turn lane and the cross section. So the 2-way left turn lane, what exactly is that? This is a diagram from the state of Connecticut Department of Transportation's standard sheets. These are not typicals. These are recommendations. These are the Connecticut DOT standards. If you're doing a state project on a state road, you must follow these standards, or you have to request a waiver. There's a whole process for that. So this shows the twiddle here. I thought I highlighted it before, but anyways, it's shown here. And the DOT, as you can imagine, recommends 14 feet. They recommend 14 feet for your 2-way left turn lane. Because that's what DOT has usually on busier roads. And in this case, they recommend 14, but the minimum they require is 12 feet. Okay, so this is not a DOT road. Okay, it's a town road. However, the classification of this roadway, North Main Street, is classified as a principal arterial roadway other, meaning it's one step below expressway, believe it or not. It's classified as the same classification as Albany Avenue. Albany Avenue, US Route 44, a national highway system highway, is classified as a principal arterial other. North Main Street is the same classification. So I want to just point out the functional classification of the roadway, meaning the importance of the roadway in terms of the traffic volumes, in terms of the cross section, in terms of where it's conveying between businesses, between the Farmington Avenue, West Hartford Center, and Bishop's Corner, and the regional significance of the roadway is part of the classification. That may change if the road diet is put in place. There may be a justification for changing classification. So the proposed North Main Street plan section. This is what I'm showing, and again, I'll show you the detailed plans. This basically shows what we are recommending based upon all the research that we've done, the other work that we've done, and looking at the roadway itself. So for North Main Street, so north of Fern Street, we have 5-foot paved shoulder, a 10-foot lane, a 12-foot 2-way left turn lane, a 10-foot northbound lane, and a 5-foot paved shoulder. Then the green belt and the sidewalk. That's where we have 42 feet. That's north of Fern Street. South of Fern Street, our recommendation is, and I'll talk more about this in more detail, is to go with a 4-foot shoulder, 10-foot lane, 12-foot, 10-foot lane, and 4-foot. Now, we have a recommendation to change that. And I'm going to go through that in a minute. But that's the primary cross section that we have for the North Main Street Road Diet trial is 10, 12, 10, and the shoulders vary from south of Fern Street to north of Fern Street. But we have a solution to get this back up to where would be 5 feet, and I'll explain that in the presentation. So let me jump out of the presentation here and go right into, jump out of here. Let me see if it jumps out. Okay. Out of that, and jump back to share my screen. Sorry. Second, just trying to get back to where I was. Okay. So share my screen. Here you go. All right. So I want to share. So we have the entire corridor, as you can see here. It's a long map. And if we were in person, we put this out on the table and we print it out full right size. We could all look at it like I usually do with public information meetings. So I'm going to zoom in here and start at the south end of the corner of the corridor and move from West Hartford Center, Brompton Avenue intersection. And I'm going to walk you through. Since we're virtual, you can see things up close. Well, so the project, our study area obviously includes Brompton Avenue at North Main Street. And in our previous presentation to the previous committee, we had shown the road dice starting right at Loomis Drive. We have since moved that with complications of Loomis Drive and the left turns out of it. So we've moved the road dice start to just north of Loomis Drive. So you go past Brace Road, go northbound, and we started just north of Loomis, go from 2 lanes to 1 lane. And then we stop it and terminate it southbound north of Brace Road as well. And that gives us about 550 feet of storage from the stop bars at Brace Road of 2-lane storage before the road die is a single lane. So you'll see this yellow line here. So I will explain that in a little more detail. That's actually a recommendation to do some widening. Get us to 42 feet. So I'll explain that after we go through this. But I just want to walk through. This is kind of what you're going to see. This is the aerial. It's the NBC map and aerial. And basically, we're not showing the markings in white. We're showing in black just to show you the existing markings below the proposed markings. But you can at least see all the features of the roadway. And we dimension the roadway here as well. So what we're planning on doing with a widening section, which I'll give a little more detail on that, with the widening section is that if the road die is successful, we're recommending that the town widen along the east side of North Main Street between Fern and Loomis. And how we're going to do that recommendation is that put in a single 5-foot shoulder on the west side, and do this as 3 feet. And if the road die is successful, all the town's do is come back in and widen along here to get your 5-foot shoulder. And I'll show a little more detail of that at the end of this. But basically, that's one of our prime recommendations is to give the town, if the road die is successful, a 42-foot wide pavement throughout the entire project. So basically, the 2-way left turn lane, the signs you see here, the markings are the arrows. And this is standard Federal Highway Administration, AASHTO, Connecticut DOT markings and signings you see here. As we go forward through the intersections from Whitman all the way up through the Keeney, and it's the same markings as we go up through the corridor. And again, this shows the widening that we have through here that we're proposing up to Fern Street. And you see the signs here too. We're going to have signs as part of the trial indicating to the driver where center lanes where they are, where they start, where they begin, where they end. So that's where we're going to be showing them. And then here at the intersection of Fern Street and North Main Street, we are going to add signal heads at the intersection here. So I'm showing this forest section here, but it's going to be a doghouse. And we're going to change the phasing here so that you have a left turn lane coming south, turning left, and a left turn lane going north onto Fern Street. And those left turns are going to operate together at the same time. So the phasing right now is that southbound has advanced onto Fern Street. We're going to, for the road diet trial, we're going to change that so the northbound left goes, the southbound left goes as well at the same time. So more efficient phasing, and it'll address some of the crash history we have there today. So I'll keep going along the corridor. And if there's any questions, ask me a question. I'd be glad to answer them. We're going to add signing as well. And again, it's the same thing throughout the entire corridor, across Leonard Road. And there's some locations where, here we didn't provide a left turn lane. It's not signalized, so we left. You can turn left from the twiddle to a left turn lane, but we provided left turn lanes at the critical intersections. This is the intersection where this is where the bridge construction is ongoing right now, and we continue through that as we go forward up to Asylum. So nothing really changing except that now the section here is now 42 feet wide. Now we have the 5-foot paved shoulder, and we have the 10-foot travel lane and 12-foot twiddle. And that carries through Brookside Boulevard all the way up to through each intersection up to Asylum. Now, so some of these intersections, like here between Fulton Place and Clifford Lane, we still provide the twiddle here so that if someone wants to turn into Clifford, they can position their vehicle here, then turn left when I wait for a gap in traffic, and vice versa for Fulton Place. And then again, we continue up through the intersection with Asylum. And Asylum here, same thing. We're going to have left turn, northbound left turn lane, southbound left turn lane, and a phasing and modifying the traffic signal to add traffic signal heads to allow us to have that phasing at the intersection. And that continues from there. We then continue, again, still 42-foot section, and then it continues north of Mountain all the way up to the terminus, which I'll get to here in a second, past Westmoreland, where we terminate the road diet right here at Pioneer Drive in Haynes Road. And that termination provides us 370 feet of storage from Sims Road stop bar to the end of the road diet just north of Lawler Road. And we start the road diet just south of Pioneer, so we can have a left turn into Lawler within two-way left turn lane. So that gives you just a quick overview of the road diet itself, the plans. There's more detail to be added to the plans for construction, more specifications to be written. But just gives you a quick summary of the overall plan for the road diet for the entire project area. And I'll leave it up if there's any questions on that before I finish the presentation. I don't know if you want to go to that before we finish the presentation, or we want to go back to it. Daniel, do I go back to, let me do this. Go back to the presentation itself. This here. Okay. So back to the presentation. So I showed you these. So we have the plans in a PowerPoint format for ease of distribution for the public. Show you here. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I want to go. All right, so this is a section I was showing you before, showing the wide. So this section here, like as I said before, this is right near Loomis, and our plan for the road diet trial is to do a 5-foot southbound paved shoulder, 10, 12, and 10, and do a 3-foot northbound shoulder. That's the plan, and obviously feedback is important as we go through the process, and we're early in that. And again, by doing that, we then can widen a couple feet in the green belt of northbound. And how do we do that? So the green belt and the northbound section, this is Loomis Drive South, the South Junction. It's pretty generous through here. It really is. Pretty generous throughout this whole section here. We're looking at doing 2 feet of widening, starting back here, and it goes all the way to Fern Street. There's a couple utility poles that are stub poles. They're basically supporting the major pole line on the west side. There's some driveways to reconstruct. There's 3 fire hydrants. There might be a couple trees impacted that we'll have to look at that in a little more detail. That provides a uniform of 42 feet of pavement for the entire project length from Loomis up to Haynes, and provides the town with a section that would end up with a 5-foot shoulder on both sides and for the entire project. And again, we're suggesting this be considered if the road diet trial is considered to be a success. So if that's the case, you would then have that 5-foot shoulder for your project after the widening is completed. And then on top of that, what we're recommending, before I get there, is we're not recommending that bike lanes be painted or striped, meaning bike lane symbols or bike lane signs. Our position is that the bike lane symbols and signs should come after. If the road diet trial is proved successful, we think it's prudent that the town wait until that success is in hand and then do the widening, and then you put in the full-fledged dedicated bike lane symbols and bike lane signs. We think that that's prudent. We think that the 5-foot and paved shoulders can be utilized by bicyclists, avid bicyclists for sure. They can use them, but based on our research and what we've done, we think it'd be prudent to wait until the road diet trial is proven success, then provide the widening as well as the defined bicycle lanes with the symbols and with the signs. So the next steps, I think Dwayne may refer to this. Obviously comments from the commission. We have an upcoming public information meeting on April 29th that Dwayne talked about. We're going to need to finalize the construction plans and looking to implement this by July 1st for a minimum of 6 months, which allows us to do some monitoring. And the key part of that is by starting in the summer months, the traffic conditions, traffic volumes are lower. We know that. And we think that gives them time to ramp up, if you will, in terms of residents that use the road, to get accustomed to it. So come the fall, when kids are in school, both in colleges and both in public schools, we think the traffic patterns will be set, and that'll give us time to monitor the traffic through the fall and potentially into the winter months as well. And then by doing that, we can then provide conclusions and recommendations to the town in the spring of 22. And I've showed here the project website. So with that, I'll conclude the presentation. Be glad to answer any questions or comments regarding the presentation.
Ben Winograd, Town Council. Can I just one question on that last point you made? If you can explain, why not have bike lane marked, and the extent that I think part of the trial would want to know, what kind of usage there is for bikes, and I think you saw the survey earlier that designated bike lanes actually helps for people using it. So, I mean, I know we tend to use whatever's available, but wouldn't that help the trial to see, sort of to encourage use in that period?
Yeah, we talked about that. We thought about it as well. It's an excellent point, and we consider that. And basically what we're saying here is that the bike lanes that are desired, the paved shoulders aren't continuous. They're not going to be continuous throughout the whole section. You kind of want to terminate them. You want to do that. So we, based on what we've seen and talking to other communities as well, we feel it's prudent that the town let the road diet success be successful if it is, and be monitored and measured, and obviously, as you said, that if bicyclists want to use, they can use it. But we thought that it'd be best to let things settle down, let the traffic patterns settle down, let the residents, let the commuters get accustomed to the transformational aspects of this, of the road diet, and those who want to use it can use it. But we feel it's prudent that you wait until the road diet trial is successful to then come back and do the widening, as we talked about. So that way you have uniform bike lanes throughout the corridor from Loomis all the way to Haynes.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Ben, for that question. I'll open up to the commission. I spoke a lot at the beginning, so I want to make sure everyone on the commission has time first. I have a few questions as well, but want to open up to other commission members and town council.
This is Ken Livingston. Joe, can you, you had mentioned first responders and the need to coordinate. Has there been feedback or responses from first responders as of now with the proposed road diet study?
Dwayne, you want to start that, or should I?
I can give an update. Dwayne Martin, town engineer. So Joe has given information to the police and fire all along, because in the scope for VHB was for them to reach out to municipalities, as Joe mentioned, that have road diets and get feedback from them. Rather than reinvent the wheel and have the fire and police departments go off on their own search, contact information for the respective fire and police were provided to West Hartford staff. So I know the fire department has been in contact with some. And then I've recently, with Joe, we met with police and fire just to give them a presentation, a better understanding of what the road diet entails and the trial that's coming up, answer questions that they have. I asked both police and fire to provide something in writing. And I think that before the meeting, there was some pretty significant concerns about emergency response times. I think as we gave them information to answer their questions, that definitely helped calm some of the concerns that they have, but it's new. You know, we don't have one in town. This is a very busy road. There's a firehouse on Brace Road, and it's an emergency response. So I don't know that the concerns are completely gone, but I don't have an official response yet. But both of them have indicated to me today that they will provide something soon. I certainly wanted to have something in writing, preferably from police and fire, before the public information meeting, because I have a feeling that your question is going to come up, Ken, that, you know, the public will ask that question. So I wanted to be prepared to answer that.
Great.
Yeah, one of the concerns they raised was they talked about they're asking about how do vehicles get out of the way if someone's in the twiddle, as I'm calling it, the median. Emergency vehicles coming, how do they get out of the way? And the way it's supposed to work for emergency services and other road diet communities that we talked about, that twiddle is for emergency services. They agree to do road diets because they can use a twiddle, the two-way left turn lane, to, you know, because you're supposed to pull over and pull to the right. That's the classic. That's what you're supposed to do as a driver. And when vehicles do that, motors do that, then it makes an open area for the emergency services apparatus to get by. And if someone's in that two-way left turn lane, that's where some concerns are sometimes. That does the driver know to move to the right? And so that was one of the concerns. The other concern they raised was the width of the two-way left turn lane. The police department actually wanted a wider two-way left turn lane. I think we convinced them that 12 foot is a nominal width, and it's a good width that's been used in other communities. Dwayne is correct that we haven't got anything in writing yet. We had a good conversation. I think we did address some of the concerns, but certainly need them on board for the road diet trial to go to be implemented.
Dan Firestone, do you have a question there? Dan, just hit the mute button. It's on the WebEx.
You know, a couple of times in the presentation, you made reference to storage. I understood your presentation pretty well, but my understanding of storage is different than your references to. So you just explain that to me.
Yeah, sure. The police department asked for that. They wanted to know the distance from a traffic signal. From a traffic signal, how many cars can you store in a lane between the end of the road diet and the next traffic signal? So how many feet of storage from the stop bar back behind you could you store vehicles? That was a question. So the plans show the storage that we have from the stop bars upstream. So if you were pulling up the Brace Road, we're showing 550 you basically have 1,000 feet of car storage from the terminus of the road diet going south towards West Hartford Center. We have 2 lanes of 550 feet of storage. Where today you have more than that. You have off the Fern Street. You basically have unlimited, if you will, 2-lane storage. But now we're going down to 550 feet with the road diet. They wanted to understand that. That was one of the questions they wanted to understand, is how much storage do they have at the outer limits of the road diet. Does that help? Does that clarify for you, or should I show you when I see on the plan? Is that understandable?
How many cars would that accommodate, 550 feet?
We figure about 25 feet per car. So, you do 4 times 5 times 4 is 20 cars in each lane. Am I math correctly? 25 feet per car. So it's about 4 cars per 100 feet. So if you have 500 feet, you've got 20 cars.
That could be enough. I'm excited about this plan, so I'm certainly in favor of it, as everybody knows.
So thank you, Dan. Sandy, I don't know if you had something to say, or Jill. I still have a couple questions, and I have some questions that came through on YouTube that I want to ask as well, but want to make sure I'm not missing you guys first.
I like the idea of not marking the bike lanes initially, that we're really doing a road diet trial. We're testing going from 4 lanes to 3 lanes and evaluating what that impact is. And I think it separates it from some of the controversy that maybe came up before that said, oh, you're just doing this for bikes. So we kind of separate those issues. I think that's a good thing to do. I was really hopeful we could go with a narrower 2-way turn lane, but I know how, if that's what emergency response is saying they have to have, it's hard to push back. That's a negotiation that you have to accomplish. The question I would have is, there's a recommendation to widen. How likely is it that the town would be able, at the end of the road diet trial, to dedicate the funds that would be needed to accomplish that short length of widening? Because it's not really that long in the scheme of things, but widening is not simple. So
This is Ken. To follow up on that, Joe, same time, you have the 2-way turn lanes, but if you're going south on North Main there's really a limited amount of left turns needed. There you have the cemetery and you have a long expanse of apartment buildings. Does it need to be a twiddle? Could it be only a left turn going north? Would that allow a narrower lane so that you don't need 12 feet in that location? Because there's very limited left turns going south that are in that area.
Yeah, Ken, I have not looked at the volume left turns in that southbound direction, but I can tell you, the 12 feet, I mean, being out there several times, almost getting hit, just trying to measure the road, standing on the curb as cars are whizzing by me, not even slowing down, talking to the communities. 12 foot is I've been engineering for 32 years now. My gut tells me that you don't want to go lower than 12 feet. You don't. And is there a way to kind of make that work? With hearing the police department and fire department express concern over the width, yeah, I don't see it as an engineer. I don't see changing it below 12 feet. I really don't.
This is
Same time,
Sherry.
you could almost consider 2 lanes of 10 feet southbound and not need a left turn going the other. I mean, yeah, because there's not, or 2 lanes northbound of 10 feet. And not, because as I said, there's limited turns you can go left going southbound there. As it's a cemetery and apartment buildings, there's a limited expanse of even limited driveway options. Something to consider.
Joe, it's Joanne. I just want to offer something in response to that, because it's something that I thought about a lot as well, and I didn't quite pick up on this until I was talking to Joe recently about it. In that your point is true about the driveways not being there to necessarily warrant having a southbound left turn lane. But in all likelihood, what's going to happen is people that are exiting their driveways are going to use the two-way left turn lane as a staging area to complete their left turn out of their driveway. And so if you can picture a car doing that, they'll get a gap in traffic, they'll then stage in the center lane. They may not be completely done turning, is one of the concerns, and the need to have that two-way left turn lane a little bit wider because the car might actually be askew. What we want to try and avoid is people using that to accelerate and then cut into traffic, but not everybody is going to complete their turn in doing that is one of the concerns that factors into the width. Now, how prevalent, I don't know, to say that it needs to be 12 feet because somebody might not complete their turn. It's difficult to say. And you could have somebody in a really small car, not a big deal at all, a smart car or a Ford Focus or whatever it may be, but you may have a pickup truck or somebody in a larger vehicle that's trying to do that needs more space. So I just want to point that out because I wasn't thinking along those lines until recently.
I did want to address Sandy's point. I don't know if you're finished with that, so you can tell me to wait.
Sorry, I'm finished.
Yeah. So Sandy's point about widening the road, I think there's two things that we're going to have to plan for. Seeing that, and I'm expecting that the road diet will be very successful. I'm very optimistic that this will be something that we will implement. And maybe I don't think we will make changes to North Main. I think ultimately there might be changes to other intersection and other streets as a result of the road diet, as opposed to going back to North Main to redo. So I think we will need to plan. And Ben and I actually spoke about this prior, and I think Ben reached out to the town manager, as we had discussed, to say that we need to make sure that we have this in the budget, and not only the expansion, but I think painting of lanes, making sure that they are clear. So that is something that we will talk about and hopefully put into this upcoming budget. And with an extension, it allows us the opportunity to do that as well. Unless Matt wants to say anything about that as he rubs his eyes.
Matt Hart, Town Manager, just to add to the mayor's comments, yes, we would plan to put the funding into our capital improvement program. And we think it's certainly something that we can accommodate within the plan itself quite readily.
Jen?
Jill, yeah, did you want to go ahead, Jill?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the, I'm glad everyone is optimistic because I am too, and it's going to be great. But Shar, you mentioned that it hope it'll be stable and permanent, and then adjustments would be made to other roads. And what would that be? I mean, if there is heavier traffic on Truckbrook or heavier traffic on Mountain, or some more shortcutting that goes through Mountain and Troutbrook are actually residential roads, right? They're not just conduits for commuters. What are the plans? So then we talked about what would be done to handle increased volume on those two roads, or cut throughs on other roads to avoid the road diet.
Well, that's part of this study information and what we'll gather, and then suggestions will come from the analysts. Not only they will come from Joe and also from Dwayne. My expectation is there will be some recommendations for Troutbrook, whether it could be a long road till when those are considered and implemented. But my guess is there will be some. But go ahead, Dwayne.
Thank you, Dwayne Martin, Town Engineer. Just to confirm, that is included in the scope, and that was part of the reason why we expanded the focus area from the first phase study to this one to include Mountain Road and Tropic Drive, because we're fairly certain that not all motorists are going to stay on North Main Street with the road diet in place. They're going to divert. Some won't. Some will be perfectly fine, or maybe they don't really have a choice. to stay on North Main Street, but some will certainly divert, and we knew that was going to be a potential issue and wanted to include it. And so that's a part of the study to monitor that, make recommendations to handle it, and hopefully it's not an issue to address.
Okay, because both of those roads already are congested and dangerous. And one of them has our longest bikeway, takes up most of the miles we claim of bikeways in the town, like, 3 or 5 of the 7 miles, right? And it's heavily used by cyclists and pedestrians. So I hope that we have some good plans for that down the road. I also have a quick comment on not putting, for the consultant, about not putting any signage for bike lanes. Sandy mentioned it, a good reason that it will maybe less controversial if they're not there at the first. But will motorists develop habits of using those lanes? So when they do become bike lanes, I don't know anything about motorist behavior and whether change of rules on a road that is heavily used is going to be picked up right away. Will we lose a couple of cyclists as we move to put in signs there? Or will the habit of not having cyclists there and signage pose a problem should we put up signage and bike lanes?
Yeah, that's
Does that
a great
make
question.
sense?
That's a great question. That's part of the reason why we're doing the trial. So to answer your question directly, I think bicyclists are going to use the paved shoulder. I think they are. I think you're going to have pedestrians walking on the sidewalks more. I think it's going to change. It's going to transform the character of North Main Street by doing this. Whether the bike lanes are painted or not, I think you're going to see that. So I don't see the driver behavior being affected by not having the signs and markings there. I think bicyclists are going to use the paved bike lanes. May not be as much as we would like to see with what is painted and signed, but I think you will see that. I think you're going to see a complete transformation of the driver behavior in this court. That's certainly the hope. That's what we expect. That's certainly the hope, and we have plenty of time to get them accustomed to it because it's starting in the summertime. But that's the expectation, that you will in fact have bicyclists using the paved shoulders, and you'll have more pedestrian activity on the sidewalks because it's going to feel less like a highway than it does now, and more like a collector or local road because of the transformation of the roadway.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, this is Daniel Johnson. Joe, a couple questions for you. Actually, first, I want to make sure I don't forget to ask this question. Town council and town engineers, do we have a date for the public information meeting yet?
April 29th. I was going to go to the next slide. Did I cover that? I thought I covered it. Didn't I cover that?
I don't remember hearing it. It could just be, I'm learning to multitask on reading public questions, taking notes, listening.
April 29th. And then,
What
as a matter
time?
of fact, then
6 to 8 p.m.
sorry.
And it's planned to be virtual as of right now.
Okay.
I think we probably could do in person to some extent, but I think we're going to have a lot of people interested that would show up. So I think we're not comfortable with that at this point. So we're still looking at virtual.
And Daniel, to your point about the survey. So the meeting is April 29th, as Wayne said. We're also doing a survey. It's going to come out next week, a survey of the town residents regarding the road diet project. And we've incorporated many of the comments and feedback you got regarding your own survey into the survey itself. So that'll be coming next week in advance of the public information meeting. So the town residents have a chance to, or anyone has a chance to provide opinions on various questions that we're asking regarding the road diet trial implementation.
Thank you, Joe. More questions here. So these are some of my own blended with some YouTube feedback as well. But first question is, regarding the beginning and end of the road diet, it drops down to 3 feet as the current proposal as you approach West Hartford Center, and as it approaches Bishop Corner as well, it is 5 feet. But realizing that, what is the expectation for anyone as a cyclist coming through that area, knowing that if I'm heading north on North Main Street, I'm in some sense approaching a better area with higher buffer area, but traffic patterns as it relates to accommodating those, people using not the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's a great question. That's one reason why we're suggesting not to do the bike lane delineation of the bike lane and the sign, and treat it as a paved shoulder, as any bicyclist would do, as I do myself on roadways. I'm riding the shoulder. If it ends, I make accommodations for that. So yeah, it's the road dye itself is terminating before Haynes to the north, and obviously before Loomis to the south. And it's the shoulder, it's a paved shoulder. So a bicyclist that's in the lane will need to make adjustments to their bike route. Maybe they turn off at Whitman Avenue to get to West Hartford Center. But it leaves it entirely to the bicyclist to decide at that point in time. So that's another reason why we're suggesting not having the bike lane signed and marked until the conclusion of the success of the road dye and the widening of North Main Street.
Okay. So do you know any data on, like, for every 1 foot of buffered room between motorists and non-motorists, the percentage of increased safety? Because the Connecticut DOT, with the pedestrian and comprehensive pedestrian strategy, encourages road diets even on state roads, which is a shift from prior to 2021, probably likely changed a lot from how people interact with their community, get outside of the house. So as we decrease the buffer room, do we have an idea of how much that puts pedestrians and bicyclists more at risk being hit by motorists?
I don't have that answer. I just passed my road safety professional certification, so maybe I should know that off the top of my head, but I don't have that number. I can certainly research that and get back to whoever's asking the question, but certainly any kind of buffer between a bike lane and a travel lane is optimal. Any kind of buffer you can have. I'd say a 1 foot buffer we could. So any kind of buffer is better than not having a buffer. But I don't have a statistic to repeat back to you in terms of what each foot does for you. I don't have that handy.
Okay, just for future, follow-up. So thank you very much, Joe. A question raised from Ed Perzanowski. What determines a successful pilot? I think that's something good to cover. I know we're very focused on the proposal, but for you as a consultant and in coordination with town, what would be successful as a pilot at this stage, understanding that public information will be held later this month?
Yeah, we have a number of factors when we're looking at in terms of what term is a success, and we're gonna present a very detailed process for how we're going to evaluate that at the public information meeting. We don't have it here, but we're going to present that. But there's a number of factors we're going to look at in terms of traffic volumes, diversion of volumes, in terms of congestion, in terms of safety, in terms of speeds. There's a whole host of them that we're going to be looking at as part of the road dye trial, and then put that in a coherent and transparent process so we can show the town residents how we monitored and how we evaluated these measures against those critical success factors, so to enable us to provide a recommendation to the town that it should remain in place or it should be removed. But there's a number of factors that we're going to be looking at, and there also will be some, I'm sure, engineering judgment factors as well. The engineering judgment is always something that we exercise regarding projects, so that may be part of it as part of the process as well. But yeah, we will definitely have a number of criteria that we're going to look at and measure against in terms of what is considered a successful road dye implementation.
Daniel.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Wayne Martin, town engineer. The town included 9 items in the scope of services as measures of success or failure. They're bullets. I can read them quickly if you'd like. And we did review these with members of the PBC before we launched this study.
Yep.
So we can receive feedback.
If you have them quick, Dwayne, I just want to make sure, we're covering a lot today, so I want to make sure we cover everything.
Yes.
That way we're all kind of walking away with the same understanding from the meeting. So if you don't mind recapping those quick, Dwayne, greatly appreciated.
Not at all. I'll go through quickly. So crash frequency and severity. So that's both before and during the trial. on all, and this is all three corridors: Mountain Road, North Main, Trafford Drive. Emergency vehicle accessibility and response time. Pedestrian and bicyclist usage and safety. Intersection or roadway segment congestion. Neighborhood traffic safety issues. Mostly if people are cutting through neighborhoods. Travel time run results. Traffic queue measurements. Intersection and driveway accessibility. And public feedback. As Joe mentioned, we are doing 2 surveys, one before and during the road diet trial, and then one after the road diet trial is completed.
Thank you, Dwayne.
You're welcome.
And Joe, if you don't mind, I just want to jump back to talking about the two-way left turn lane. So in the beginning of the meeting, you mentioned it's hard to find corridors like North Main Street. And I think of, my perception of North Main Street, it's probably hard because I feel like North Main Street is a residential roadway. So 4 lanes somehow snuck in there at one point and it just stayed. Now, you talked about a couple of things regarding the 12-foot to, I can't even work with that acronym at this point in the night, but 12 feet for that center turn lane as opposed to 10 feet. Looking at the trial, understanding the importance for first responders, but how much space is in that roadway, why is 10 foot not an option to look at?
There's a couple things. One, there's no standard. There's no precedent for any standard from any agency offering a 10-foot wide two-way left turn lane. Number one. Number two, DOT requires 12 feet. ASHTO says 11 foot might be appropriate, but has no definitive cross-sectional recommendation, unlike DOT. Emergency vehicle accessibility. The width of vehicles, the width of a school bus, the width of a fire truck, the width of a truck is part of it. The maneuvering that Dwayne was talking about as you come to drive or leave your driveway. So those are all the reasons why. And I'll add engineering judgment. It is the final nail, if you will, that tells us that in this case, 10 foot is not appropriate. And therefore 12 foot is the recommended width. So Dan, you mentioned that interesting perspective there. It's kind of what's what I'm looking for. They're opposing views. You've got a residential area, but you have a principal arterial other roadway in that residential area. So it's very unusual, as you said, and that's why it was unusual to try and find a similar type in other parts of the country. So yes, yeah. It's a opposing views, if you will. You don't normally have a principal arterial roadway other type in a residential area. So those reasons, Daniel, is why the 12-foot width of the two-way left turn lane, I call it twiddle, is why we are standing with the 12th recommendation.
Okay, and I believe Mayor Cantor has to step out, so thank you, Mayor Cantor, for joining. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
On that, Joe, sorry, I come from like a fascination with infrastructure and how roadways play a role in our economy and how people are equitable throughout town. And I think of 84 never used to exist, but now it's a highway. Huge extreme, right? But the roadway becomes what is going to be long-term as accepted, and stepping back, in a kind of a, thinking through North Main Street, had it not been a 4-way roadway, as a consultant, designing this road, imagine there's no 4-way roadway, and we're looking at North Main Street to be built in West Hartford by a developer. Understand it's a north-south route, but any thoughts on if you were to redo North Main Street all over from scratch what that roadway might look like, given the either its houses or as it's approaching the town center?
Well, it's a tough question. I mean, there's a lot of ifs there. There's a lot of, um, the roadway itself. What is it carrying the same volume? Are you saying carrying the same volume? I mean, there's a lot of ifs there in terms of trying to develop a dream pavement section. I mean, if you're asking what's the best section here, I would say having a buffer between your bike lanes. I mean, without a doubt, I would say, I'd say if you want to do a road diet, you want to have a twiddle, that makes sense. You want a buffer between your bike lanes. That would be the ideal, is to have more room, to have more pavement. We don't have that. But Daniel, the one point I did mention in the past discussions that it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible that we do the road diet trial and the fire department and police department come back and say, you know what, that twiddle's plenty, 12 foot's plenty. And certainly possible that maybe there's a decision made that maybe 12 feet is too wide. I don't think it's going to happen, and I'm not trying to paint you a rose garden here, but we're looking at everything. There's certainly a possibility that the recommendation may come back that twiddle maybe 12 feet is more than enough wide. Maybe it should be 11 feet. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that's a possibility. Everything's being monitored. We're going to monitor everything. So that is a possibility. I don't think a fire department would want to have a narrower lane, but my point here is that is a possibility that there could be an evaluation of the width of the twiddle. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's again, it's a trial. That's one benefit of the trial.
Yeah.
You're going to evaluate those things. So it's one possibility.
Appreciate it, Joe. Thank you very much. I know my if questions
That's all right.
can take it one way, but understanding the perspective that you're bringing, I greatly appreciate that response. I want to open it up last to the commission. Any other questions? I do have a couple resident questions. I think we have a couple minutes left for you, Joe. Definitely want to respect your time, and Dwayne as well.
I'm here.
But commission, first, any questions?
Hey Daniel, Paul Hogan here. I have a quick question. So I live on North Main Street, and the biggest kind of question that I get from people, or the biggest resistance when I'm trying to, I guess, sell the project, is people wonder, how much longer is it going to take me to get from Bishop's Corner to Farmington Avenue? Do you have a defined kind of time on that?
It's going to take longer. It's going to take longer. And it's going to take more than a minute longer. I don't have the exact number. We do have that, and I'll have that for the public information meeting, but it is going to take longer. The traffic analysis that we did assumed that we would try and maintain similar queuing, if you will, for the diversion. So that you're going to divert traffic off North Main Street to achieve a similar queuing you're seeing pre-pandemic. That's the intent. Now, does that equate to a similar commute? Probably not, because we're having single lanes. But we are expecting that yes, it is going to take longer to drive through North Main Street. And every road diet, we see that for the most part. Most road diets, almost all of them, you see that there is a reduction. an increase in the travel time through the corridor. I don't have the exact number, but it's not 5 minutes, but it's not 30 seconds. There is an increase in the travel time through the corridor, and I'll have the number for you. I should have had that with me.
Yeah, no problem. And I assume that's directly correlated with people using Trout Brook or Mountain. The longer it takes, the more likely someone is to kind of.
Well, you think about it. If you're driving up North Main Street, you're going home, let's say, and you live on the other side of Fern Street, and you see that the queue in the road diet, the queue is backing up, to Loomis, then you may change your route, because that's probably too long. That's longer than it usually is pre-pandemic. So you may change your pattern. Maybe you won't. It depends on the person. That's what we don't know, and that's why we're doing the trial is to evaluate that. So that's what we think is going to happen. People will change. Motors will change their patterns based upon the travel time, or the time their perception of travel time, or perception of time in a queue. That's where we think you'll see diversion happening, or drivers may just say, forget about it. I'm not going to go there because I know it's happening, and I'll wait till things settle down, and I'll come back, in 3-4 months. So I think that's one good thing about doing the summertime. In summertime, you're going to flush some of those things out with the summertime because you're going to have less volume in the summertime, and people and drivers will be able to, I think, adjust their routes or try it out during the summertime. And if it feels good during the summertime, they can, they've been driving there for years. They may say, well, you know what, in the winter, maybe the fall it'll be much worse or won't be much worse. So yeah, it's going to be something like that, and that's why the trial is going to be helpful because you just can't exactly predict driver behavior, especially these days with the pandemic. We just don't know.
Great, thank you.
I can tell you that drivers will be slower. We'll be driving slower. That we do know. Well, that's what we hope for. They should be driving slower. And that's part of the reason why you're going to have reduced travel, increased travel time.
Thanks, Joe. And last question from me is the study had its start and end points. At any point was extending the road diet in either direction part of your scope for this project?
No, our scope was defined to look at Farmington Avenue to Albany Avenue.
Okay. Commission, any other questions here for Joe or Dwayne? So Dwayne, do you mind repeating when the public information will be held, what day, what time, and how people can access that meeting?
Sure. So the Dwayne Martin, Town Engineer again, the public information meeting for the North Main Street Road Diet is planned for Thursday evening, April 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. And VHB, Joe Balskis and his team are going to be providing information to the public on that. So the virtual meeting invitation information has not been created just yet, but we will be doing an advertising campaign, if you will, to promote the meeting and the road diet trial itself. We will put information on the town engineering webpage. There's a project webpage created for that. There's also a banner, although I haven't seen it. I've been told there was the banner was installed on the Unity Green, on the north end of the Unity Green at Farmington, Maine. So we're trying to get out in front of the road diet trial deployment.
Can you repeat that last part, Dwayne? I meant to ask about that. So on the Community Green, they put up a banner for the road diet trial?
Yes, like I said, Daniel, we're trying to get information out to the public and direct them to our webpage so that they're not surprised. They know what the project is all about before we implement the trial and change the road. So we thought it would be a good idea. One of the things that we thought would be a good idea is to put a banner out. So the banner is going to be out there for about a week. And again, it'll direct people to our webpage so that they can learn more. And then I believe we're putting it out again for another week just before the trial starts. I don't have the actual dates for that. Again, we're just trying to spread the word. I don't know if you have any additional information about the virtual public information meeting and promoting that.
Sorry, was that for me, Dwayne? I'm sorry.
Yes, I didn't know if you had any other information about how
well, yeah. Okay. So VHB is going to be hosting the public information meeting. We have a facilitator who's well versed in facilitating meetings, Jeffrey, and he's going to be running that part of it, and I'll be doing the technical part of the presentation. We're going to have it, very well managed in terms of the public input, so we can manage it and keep track of who's providing input and who's asking questions. We'll do a similar presentation to this with a little more. Presentation details and some on the plans, so it'll be more formalized based on the comments we got tonight, and expand upon that. Have more maybe some more photos as well, and talk about some more details of this. And I'll have some of the questions that were asked about it. Dwayne talked about the 9 points of success that we're going to look at. We'll have that detailed in a very nice graphic showing that, so we can walk through that so the public understands that. And a little more detail on the schedule as well. So yeah, it's going to be run by VHB, on VHB's our virtual meeting program we have. We've done probably 200 or 300 of these since March of last year. So it's a pretty good setup. We'll be doing that, and we'll have like three or four of us running the show, managing it, and taking questions from the public.
Great. you know,
And we'll have that meeting link coming out next, with the survey's coming out next week. The survey's also gonna have a virtual meeting link as well for the public to see. I'll put that up on the website too.
thank you, Joe. Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you both for your time on that today. We're going to continue as a commission for the next 25 minutes or so, but thank you for taking the time today and the presentation.
Thank you. Great input.
You're welcome.
And I just want to share my screen with everyone so they can find the North Main Street Road Diet page on the West Hartford site. So if you Google West Hartford North Main Street Road Diet, depending on your search history, we have the North Main Street Road Diet study page here. You could find information up to date on the resources. I believe, Joe and Dwayne, this is where, sorry, I'm about to have a sip there, Joe, where the survey will be posted and the upcoming meeting agenda as well.
Yes. And any documents related to the meeting as well will post it there. Correct.
Okay. So for everyone's awareness, this is on the town website. For ease, I Google North Main Street Road Diet Study, West Hartford. It brings me to this town page up here. So that is available to you to follow and keep updated on this information. All right, so as a commission, next we have on the agenda, I wanted to talk about what we've learned from the North Main Street Road Diet presentation. What are our next steps as a commission, preparing for this public information meeting? My son has his own input, as you could tell. I think he's very vocal about the scenario, if you heard in the background. And let me just share my screen again. So taking notes during the commission meeting and some follow-up, it looks like, as a commission, we have a couple opportunities here to let the public know about the upcoming meeting, what questions are out there, and do we want to consider adopting a resolution for the town to look at. And again, this is just a draft for today to discuss. Maybe we can finalize it a little bit. But where the town of West Hartford, with the West Hartford Pedestrian Bicycle Commission, is committing to building an infrastructure that considers the safety of all roadway users equitably. The town of West Hartford recognizes increasing risk, etc. Recognizes increased pedestrian. Recognize the, obviously, tail that a little bit, but the town of West Hartford adheres to adopt a complete streets policy and commits to proactively shaping, but really getting into, after the road diet study, and something we can talk about as a group now, is when the road diet trial is done, if it's deemed successful, understanding that we do have, as a commission, the opportunity to present from the town that if it's successful, will the town adopt a resolution to accept the 5-foot buffer on both sides of the roadway, and maybe some other items. As a group, or individually on the commission, what are your thoughts on this approach? Maybe something we could pick up later. So again, just talking it out as a group and as a commission, nothing has to be said, let's go with this today, but are you open to talking this through email, see if this is a good step for the commission, or were you thinking something different after the meeting today?
Daniel, this is Ken Livingston. I guess I'm confused. I'm not seeing, I guess I'm confused what this is, in a sense, and
sure, yeah, it's
what
a good
you're trying to do here.
Right. So we have the consultants, we have the road diet trial, right? and what can we do to kind of strengthen the position of the town once the road diet trial is done? You know, what are things that we can expect from the town based off of how the trial is either a success or not a success? And just getting that a little bit in writing, or as a commission, this is what we present to the town. If it's successful, this is what we expect you to do based on the results. Again, this is a draft. Nothing that is going to be finalized today. Just wanted to bring it up with you guys, discussion, if you think it's a good approach, or should we hold off on something like this until a later date and discuss as a group later?
Hey, Daniel, it's Paul here. I think we might want to just wait and see on it and see if it is a success, and then you know, hopefully implement it long term. So I think kind of my view is more wait and see how things progress.
Sure. Thanks, Paul.
This is Sandy. I think that sort of our duty right now, having seen the plan that was presented, is providing our feedback to the town as to what we think about that design. Do we, you know, from my point of view, I'm happy with what I saw. I think that it's been an attempt to create bike facilities in the future, but with the recognition that we don't quite have the width that would be desired in that section south of Fern. So I think it's a good proposal. I'd like to see the commission get behind the proposal as it stands now to be the design that is tested after the bridge work is finished. I don't know if we need to do something officially or not, or if it's just sufficient, like for Dwayne and Matt and Joe to have heard the discussion and get a sense of where we are on things. That's
Thank you,
my
Sandy.
thought.
Yeah. I didn't gather that we have to provide a response today. Like, we're in 100% support of what was presented or not. I think feedback was my understanding of the session today. Did anyone feel differently that we should present a response at this moment or wait for the public information meeting?
It's Jill. I think it's fine to wait. I think we should thank everyone. I mean, you know, just a note or a phone call to Dwayne and thank him, and to maybe the town council members who are there. But I'm going to thanking them, just send appreciation for all the work that's being done to make this trial possible. But it may be better that our voice is not present at that meeting that's coming up, right? I don't know.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Dan, I know you're there because I helped you get online today. Any questions?
No, I'm still here, but my picture froze. No, but I think it's a little premature also to come up with a resolution.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
So as the road trial, you know, he said July is about the start time for the road diet trial. As a commission, I think we should be thinking about, as that trial is going on, you know, how we engage with the town, how we engage with residents, what can we provide during that trial time to the town for either recommendations or feedback. So just something to keep in mind. That's where the resolution was going, is the trial start date is a period of time, but there's also that time while the trial is going on. You know, what can we be doing and how can we make sure that it becomes a success and we have follow-up after at that point. So I think, from what I heard from the group today, we'll provide feedback to the town. If there's anything else to add, as a commission, follow up with the town council, but we'll wait for a further understanding of the trial and hear where the public information meeting, what they gather, but not to interject for that meeting. Just that way, it's a very pure public information and feedback. Does everyone agree on that? Or have comments on or changes?
Agreed.
All right, thank you, Dan. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Paul.
I agreed.
I know Colin dropped off. I hope he's okay. He was driving. So great. I'm excited to have steps for us. I think today was very informative. We learned a lot from that meeting. Last on new business. So we have survey results. Ken and I spoke with Dwayne and Todd just via email on getting together with them to discuss the survey results. Does anyone want to be involved in that meeting? Right now, it's tentatively scheduled for end of April. We haven't put anything on the calendar yet, but does anybody else on the commission want to join that meeting? Ken, I think it's just you and I didn't mean to volunteer you on that, but assuming you're the survey leader, that was okay with you.
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay.
I think, Daniel, you're finding people are just, especially those of us who've been on Zoom all day long, are just not sure where we are right now.
I'm with you. I usually have good vision, but by now I'm pretty much. I had carrots today. I was hoping that would help me out. So last for new business, we have nothing as a commission. Bike West Hartford, I believe Ed's on the line, maybe Ethan Frankel. Any updates from Bike West Hartford today?
This is Ethan. There are no updates from Bike West Hartford. I am sort of concerned about the fact that it seems to be just kind of like when you're approaching this road diet, it's just like good luck. Good luck getting to the road to the shoulder, because we don't know how you're going to do it. You're going to do it, I guess, by being an experienced bicyclist who doesn't mind being in some tight bottleneck. But I know that wasn't part of the plan. But it's just sounding like it's just good luck. Nobody's even thinking about it.
Thanks, Ethan. And just to tailor where you're speaking to, that would be the intersections, correct? Approaching and ending the road diet, depending on which direction you come from?
Correct.
Okay. Ethan, while you have the floor, for Bike West Hartford, what projects are you working on right now, or any updates for Bike West Hartford, maybe on cycling without age, or even on involvement with North Main Street?
Right now, the only thing we started talking about plans to try to have some bike rides during the summertime season for the town, and then of course our other focus is to continue towards having the Mary Ellen Memorial Bench area come to fruition.
Great, thank you. And Dan, I have cycle with age on the agenda.
We're pretty much inactive. I don't know when we're going to start.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Dan. Well, for everyone's awareness, any other questions for this meeting and the commission at this time? Okay. Well, we have a lot to digest from the meeting today. This is a public meeting. It is recorded on YouTube, so you can always turn back and look at the meeting if you have questions about the presentation, maybe some of the points that were talked about or questions to follow up, YouTube is the best source for that. If you go to YouTube and search West Hartford Pedestrian and Bicycle Commission, you can find the meetings, go to the most recent release date, and you can find the most recent release. For these meetings, usually a 2-day delay, sometimes quicker. Our next meeting as a commission is May 10th, 2021. And that will be, again, 7 p.m. Virtual meeting. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Dwayne, I see you're still on the line. Thank you for joining. Commission members, thank you. And thank you to Andrea for hosting. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.